The Violinist by Cody Bogart, published by Badman Publishing, all rights reserved, from the collection of short stories, Tales of the Unexpected, available on Kindle. The quiet old man, bow-tied and with a befuddled air, good manners, was a bit of a mystery to his neighbors of the apartment block they inhabited. Some tried to engage him in conversation, but while maintaining all the polite courtesies, he avoided revealing much about himself. The general opinion was he was a man of education and perhaps taught music, maybe still teaches music, as each day he leaves carrying a violin case and returns in the late afternoon. So they called him to each other, at least in lieu of a name, the Professor, which seemed an adequate description. The other residents of the apartment block were generally of the professional classes, although there was a plumber in number 12 who drove a Jaguar, so business must be good. The quality of the building was good enough to shut out most noise between the apartments, and, as a consequence, people got on well, passing each other at the elevator or stairs with the good morning, although the forecast says rain later, or the refuse collectors are on strike again, double bag your garbage, and such items of conversation that are easily started and finished, and not time-consuming, or requiring any real deep thought. The Professor rarely, if ever, instigated any conversation, but would amiably nod as if in agreement or to acknowledge he had been spoken to. Each morning he would leave his apartment at 8:30, carrying his violin case, and be away until late afternoon. Should the elevator be occupied when he summoned it, he would mime that he had forgotten something, perhaps patting his pockets and resignedly shrugging that he had to return, so the occupant or occupants should carry on down without him. This was effective and gave him the reputation of being an absent-minded professor, which, had he known, he would have liked. Today was going to be different, though. Today the elevator opened to reveal an empty interior, and he stepped inside and pressed for the ground floor. Before the doors could close, a gloved hand interrupted their progress, and they sprung back. A young woman, late 20s perhaps, wearing a nurse's uniform, carrying a backpack in one hand, to which was also attached a female infant of 4 years. Unable to perform his forgot routine, the Professor was trapped at the rear of the cabin, unable to pass mother and child. "What a morning," the elder female exclaims. "The childminder has phoned in sick, and I have to get to work. I don't know what to do with Mary." Mary is presumably the infant, currently sucking her thumb and looking unfazed. Worse than being spoke to, the Professor is horrified by having his free hand, the one not carrying the violin case, held by the child. As the elevator doors open at the ground floor, the grown-up female looks at the couple sharing the conveyance and has a brainwave. "Gee, could you look after Mary? I really need to get to the hospital. We're understaffed. Everything she needs is in the backpack." "Oh, thank you. You're my hero. And the nurse is gone." The Professor, lost for words, having avoided the practice of conversation for so long, looks down into the blue eyes of Mary, who returns the looks with a beatific smile. The Professor has a dilemma. Do they return to his apartment and wait for the mother to reclaim her offspring, or does he continue with his daily routine? Mind frozen, but not so much as to fail to realize locking himself indoors with an infant is not a good idea. He walks out the block, still attached to the infant and her backpack, half expecting to be challenged. What is that old man doing with a child? He is surprised to be the receiver of smiles, not aware of the image they project, a grandfather taking his granddaughter out for a treat. They wait for the bus, and when it arrives they get on board, taking 2 seats near the front. Mary, having released a hand so that fares could be paid, now holds on to an arm, cuddling as if it were a teddy bear or similar stuffed comfort toy. The Professor is at a loss, but somehow is not dismayed. Their stop is soon reached. The Professor indicates this is where they disembark. On the sidewalk, Mary takes his hand again, Professor has a destination. It's where he goes every day. He decides not to vary his routine. He has an economic need to work. When they arrive, he seats Mary, who makes no resistance and instead opens her backpack, taking out a bottle of juice, a lunchbox, and importantly for her, a coloring book and crayons. The professor sees that Mary has made herself comfortable against the wall of the bank. He takes out his violin and places the open case on the ground in front of him. This is his pitch, plenty of foot traffic of people going to work and shoppers. There are regulars, those who always find a few coins to toss in the case for the old musician. For his pride, there are occasional pausers, who linger to enjoy the tunes and then give a little more generously. As for those who listen but do not donate, he accepts his situation and inwardly hopes he has, at least, given them a few moments of pleasure by his skill. He starts his repertoire with the Paganini Caprice 24, requiring technical wizardry, but also a great finger-limbering up piece. Follows that with Saint-Saëns' Introduction and Rondo Capriccioso, another piece not easy to play and with some adaptation on his part to compensate for the missing instruments that support this in the concert halls. A quick rearward glance to check on Mary, to find her absorbed in her coloring in of a unicorn, he then produces a regular crowd pleaser, the Vivaldi violin pieces. The coins have intermittently dropped into the open case, a below-average day, and the professor wonders if his repertoire needs changing. Perhaps the regulars of this route to work or leisure need something more. Time for Hungarian dances, lively tunes to cheer people up. And it works. As the music strikes out and he gets more into playing at his finest, people stop to listen. Soon the pavement has a small crowd in a semicircle around him, and coins and notes fall into the case. They clap along with the music, and when he stops to take a breather, they burst into applause. This is most flattering. He is entirely surprised at the response and decides to continue with show tunes. He is into a medley from My Fair Lady when he becomes aware that the attention is not on him after all. No, the audience is entranced by something behind him. Without pausing in his playing, the professor pivots slightly to look behind. On her small square of pavement between the wall of the bank and the elderly violinist, 4-year-old Mary is dancing. No simple jigging as one might expect from an infant, but a mesmerizing display of interpretive dance, Mary in her own world, her features bathed in a mystical glow, warmed by the activity, charmed by her obvious delight in his playing. He pauses in reverence for something close to divine, sees her begin to break out of her trance-like state, and is wise enough to resume immediately. Gently, he begins to close his performance, allowing the child to ease back to rest. The crowd have been royally entertained, and notes, not coins, fill up the case. As the crowd moves on, comments reach his ears. That was the most beautiful thing I've seen in ages. Your granddaughter is amazing. Unable to explain to himself what happened, but delighted at the revenue, more than he usually made in a week, the professor fills his pockets with the money so that he can return the violin into the case. He helps Mary put her things into her backpack, and they catch the bus home. When her mother collects Mary from the professor's apartment, she is so grateful. I'm so sorry for forcing Mary on you like that, but I felt I could trust you, and I was needed in theatre for an important operation, which would have been cancelled had I not gone into work. Thank you so much. Thank you, said a tiny voice. Oh my God, oh my God. What's wrong? The professor asked. Mary, she spoke to you. Yes, I heard. No, you don't understand. Mary is autistic. She hardly ever speaks, and not to strangers. I knew she wouldn't be any trouble to look after as long as she has her coloring book. Really likes you, said Mother with tears in her eyes. She never talks to the childminder. It's difficult being a single parent. Why not cancel the childminder tomorrow? Mary and I can go out again. Truth be told, the professor, which he really was not, was a lonely man. This child had touched something in him, and he wanted to see her dance again. An angel in a child's body, Plus, his revenues had never been so good as today. He understands some people call this a win-win scenario. The end. Follow Cody Bogart at Badman Publishing for more stories.